IRS has made some significant revisions to their payment plan policies. I'm Brad Paladini. I'm a tax attorney. I've been a tax attorney for over a decade. And during that time, I've represented clients who have owed a few $1,000s to over $100 million resolve their IRS tax debt. What are some of the changes that the IRS has made to their payment plan programs in 2026? Let's dive in one by one. So historically, if you owed the IRS money and you wanted to avoid a tax lien, you need to have paid the balance under $50,000 and agree to a payment plan over 72 months. That was the requirement in order to avoid a tax lien filing. They have changed this very recently. You still need to owe less than $50,000. But instead of paying the debt over 72 months, you now have until the statute of limitations expires to repay the debt. If you need help figuring out which payment plan or hardship status is appropriate for you, you can click on the link below, book a consultation with our office, and see if we can help you out. So how long is the statute of limitations? Generally, the IRS has 10 years from when a tax is assessed to collect the balance due. So depending on what year you owe for, you could have up to 120 months to repay the debt, or you could have less than that if it's a very old debt. But again, instead of the previous locked in 72 months, you do have until the debt expires to pay it off. This should lower payment plans for the vast majority of people who owe money to the IRS. If you owe more than $50,000, but less than $250,000, you have a couple different options. Number one, you could make a lump sum payment to get the balance under 50 grand and then avoid the tax lien. If that's simply not possible, you can still get on an installment agreement. The same sort of terms apply where you have until the statute of limitations expires in order to pay off the debt. So if you owe the IRS $120,000 and there's 120 months to collect, you would have to pay roughly $1,000 a month on that installment agreement. Again, this is a pretty major change from how things worked previously. What if you owe more than $250,000? Well, if you owe more than $250,000, you are required to provide a financial statement to the IRS. Typically, this is going to be a Form 433-F. I have another video that kind of goes line by line on how to fill it out. But essentially, what you are getting is all of your income information, all of your expense information, all of your asset information, so the IRS can make a determination as to your ability to repay the tax debt. So if you owe more than $250,000, you are going to be required to provide a financial statement. Now, no matter how much you owe, if you can't afford the monthly payments that the IRS is requiring, you do have a few other options, all of which will require you to provide a financial statement. So if you can prove a partial financial hardship, so in the example I gave where you owed $120,000 and there's 120 months left to collect, if you can prove to the IRS that you can't afford $1,000 per month, you can get on what's called a partial pay installment agreement. So if you can only afford to pay $500 a month, the IRS will only require you to pay $500 per month. Once the statute of limitations expires, the rest of the debt usually goes away. Now, if you can't even afford the $500, you could apply for a full financial hardship, what's called currently non-collectible status. So in order to get on the status, again, you have to provide that financial statement and essentially prove that you have no ability to repay the tax debt. So you can't even afford $500 per month. You can't afford anything. They will put you on that currently non-collectible status and not require you to make any payments. During this time, the statute of limitations, that clock is still ticking, but every 2 to 3 years, they may come back to you and ask you if you can afford to pay anything more. Now, if you qualify for currently non-collectible status, there's a possibility you could also qualify for an offer in compromise, which isn't a payment plan, but it is an opportunity to settle your tax debt up front. So To recap on the major changes in 2026 to IRS payment plans, if you owe less than $50,000, or you can make a lump sum payment to get it below $50,000, you will have until the statute of limitations ends to repay the tax debt and no lien is filed. If you owe between $50,000 and $250,000, you can get on a payment plan without providing any financial information, so long as you can afford to pay the tax debt off before the statute of limitations expires. If those options don't work, or you owe more than $250,000, you're going to need to provide a financial statement to the IRS, typically the Form 433-F, in order to prove a partial or full financial hardship. And if none of those options work, or you want to try and settle your tax debt up front, you could apply for the IRS offer in compromise process. If you need help figuring out which payment plan or hardship status is appropriate for you, you can click on the link below, book a consultation with our office, and see if we can help you out.